Yo, little amazing people of the tube. First off, happy Father's Day, because fathers don't get enough recognition in this world. I want to talk to you guys about the conehead people, the elongated skull people, right? The ones from Peru, from Egypt, from different parts of the world, right? Now, there is a separation between people that retarded the shape of their head, right? Like, because when people are babies, right? There's basically 5 bones in the head, and they're not fully formed and they're not fully attached. So as a person gets older, those bones solidify into one piece, right? So basically you have a piece in the front, you have 2 at the top, 1 in the back, and 2 more on the sides where your ears are, right? Now, there's people that tie off their head. There's like African tribes where they tie off their head with rope and they make the skull appear elongated. But essentially what they're doing is they're taking a regular sized skull and deforming it. The Mayans and Aztecs did a very similar thing where they tied boards on the forehead to flatten out and give this elongated look of the skull. Now, people have also done the opposite in history, where they tied off the ear portion of the head. And you know how Stewie looks in Stewie from the cartoon? You know how he has the football head? Basically, they did that with, they would tie the ear so the ear was more rounded, right? Because your ear sits flush on the side of your head, but they made their ears round, perk like to the side. So imagine Stewie's head with like ears curled. I don't know if it was for what reason, if it was to hear better, if it was just what that culture was into. So people have done a lot of weird stuff with reshaping the head. But there's this entire other group of people where it appears they are born this way. This is a genetic thing, right? So not only are their skulls elongated, but they're larger than the average person's skull. Their brain was larger. And if you go through the pictures, you'll notice the differences. Like, hold on a second, this one doesn't seem real. This one seems like they made it this way. But when I was telling you about how there's different bones that compose the human skull, right? These people had a different anatomy. They had different sets of bones, and the way that they attached were different. Not to mention, so the skull rests on a spinal cord, right? Well, that's further back, right? So if, like, let's say if you're looking at a person's face and that's the back of their head, ours is pretty centered. So theirs were shifted back to, not only was it shifted back, but the hole was larger, where like your spinal cord would go through, right? But it's farther back to help balance that head that is protruding from the back. So this isn't something you can just do by tying a head or tying a board. No, these people are genetically like this. And I'll give you perfect examples of this. So we found a whole bunch of these skulls in Peru, right? Now, when you go to Egypt, like if you look up Egypt, I'm gonna butcher these people's names, but Pharaoh Edekanakin, it'd be knocking, right? Like Edekanakin and Queen Nefertiti, right? They both had this weird shape of a head. And these people were pharaohs and queens. So you have to understand, like, these weren't just people trying to meet an image or a standard. They were the standard. They were the image, right? And then so like in modern times, we have people that are born in different ways genetically, right? Like people with dwarfism, right? Well, small people, These are regular people. They're just born with different anatomy. But in terms of their head, their skull, their brain, is no different than mine and yours, right? Now, there's other disorders where people are mentally handicapped because of it, right? They're short in a lot of different areas because this is not only a physical genetic defect, but it's also a mental, right? It's also a defect in regards to the brain. Now, if you look at the skulls online and you were to just go through them, you'll notice the real ones, they have a larger eye sockets. They have no eyebrow ridge. Their cheekbones are very pronounced, and they go further back than they do on our heads. Like, it looks like it's twice as long, the cheekbone. It looks like these people had really precise features, right? Like when you see someone with big cheekbones, how it stands out, right? Big eyes. They had these characteristics and stuff. Now, I don't think, like, there's a lot of stuff online about them being hybrids, right? Like half human, half alien, and I mean, I don't know about all that. But what I do think is maybe that there was, during those times, a branch of humanity, like a branch of Homo sapien, that was amongst Homo sapiens. I think they were more intelligent because they had a larger brain, because all of them seem to have high positions in society, right? So because they had high positions in society, I think it's also safe to say they weren't really suffering from mental retardation, right? Like if we sat them down and gave them a psychological evaluation and tested their cognitive power and their brain, just their brain power, I think they'll do better than the average, is my assumption, right? Just because they held high positions in power. So now, why? And I don't think this is just a genetic defect. And I'll say this because, like, during those times, in the entire world, at the most, there was people in the population was probably at the most in the hundreds of millions. And I don't even think they would have been like in the hundreds of millions. Probably in the low hundreds, like 100, 200 million people in the world. Today, we have almost 8 billion. So imagine every single disorder that's exists today. We have very rare genetic defects that are so rare. There's only 5 or 10 people in the world that have certain genetic defects. And it's ironic that we're not seeing the elongated shape, like people being born like this, right? But we do have tribes today that try and practice looking like it, but it doesn't come anywhere close to the actual elongated conehead people. And that's probably where they got the idea for the coneheads to begin with, right? Like, but yeah, so I don't think it was a genetic defect. I think this was either a subspecies of human, sub not meaning like lower than, just a different branch of Homo sapien during that time. Maybe it was, like, if you look at the different skulls that have existed, right? So the Neanderthal skull is more elongated than ours. It seems like if you were to take a Homo sapien and a Neanderthal, and if they had a kid, they might get an elongated skull person as offspring. So I don't know. I don't dismiss that, but that's just another theory of mine, right? So these are all theories. I'm not telling you the fact because I wasn't there. I've never seen these people in real life, but I do know that there is a legitimate elongated skull people, and then there's a fictitious, a pretentious. I would love to hear you guys' opinion on this, because this topic has been fascinating to me ever since I was a little kid, man. I always thought, at first I was like really into aliens, and I was like, man, this might be proof of hybrids and whatnot. And I'm still not gonna dismiss that, but the evidence doesn't hint towards that. But what I would like to see is a genetic comparison, like if they do an entire genetic breakdown and compare it to modern man, and we see what the actual deviation is. And I guarantee you there's going to be a genetic deviation. And I'm not talking about like a severe deviation, like 5%, like a complete different species. But I'm sure it's going to be a pretty significant difference in genetics. And I would love to read the details about that. If some scientists actually did break down the genome and did a compare and contrast and did an unbiased review of it, right? I would love to get my hands on something like that and read it. And if you guys are aware of it, I'll share it with me. Share it with me. Hey, put it in the comments. I'll literally go and read all that shit. But put your ideas down there too, man. People are afraid to fucking speak, man. I turn off all my like comments. All that shit is unfiltered. I completely turn off all filters. You can say the worst things ever. I don't give a fuck, man. Freedom of speech, motherfucker. Freedom of speech. Say whatever the fuck is on your mind. I don't mind. I'll respect you saying your fucking thoughts. So hit the like, hit the whatever the fuck, but more importantly, put your fucking thoughts down. You're a human being. You have ideas. You have your own thoughts and opinions. I'd want to read it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a reason I don't show my face, because I'm highly opinionated, and it's probably not a good idea to attach my face to all my wild ideas, because I say some wild shit sometimes. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I like my privacy. You know? So anyway, Solo Yola Bolo, leave a comment, like, subscribe, whatever the fuck, or don't. Go fuck yourself, right? That's fine too. Solo Yola Bolo, deuces.